Greetings, everybody. Welcome to Live Talk. Thank you very much for tuning in today. And just like the end of the day, we really appreciate your consistency in support. And if you haven't subscribed to our channel, kindly subscribe so that you don't miss any of our videos. But just like the end of the day, today we also have a special guest for you. His name is other than Jesse Shan. He is an entrepreneur. He's an online business coach, but before he transitioned to doing what he's doing right now, he had been serving in the service and hospitality industry for over 17 years of his life. But let's get to hear much of that from him, shall we? Welcome to Live Talk, Jesse. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
It's so lovely. Would you just mind giving a brief introduction of who you are, what exactly you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Jesse Shan, as you actually know this already. And so I'm here in the online world, right? As an online business coach right now. And that's why I'm using social media as a platform to do that. As you know as well, is if you don't have a business online, you probably don't have a business at all. So I wasn't always there, right? I was in the restaurant and hospitality industry for a long time. Too long for me to really admit, more than half my life. And
wow,
really, yeah, I know, it's crazy. It's crazy to think about it that way. But making that switch from where I was to where I am today was because of the freedoms that would come with that. And so that's the reason, being able to help people online, have more reach. That's why I decided with my wife to make this switch happen. So,
wow, yeah. Perfect. I think that online business coaching is something that is very critical, especially in the times that we are in right now, because everything seems to be shifting bit by bit to online. Every business, I believe, should at least be active online. But nonetheless, there's been a lot of conversations that have been going on, man. There are a lot of people that have been asking me about these things that has to do with their destiny or their way in life. Many people don't know what exactly they want to do out of life because many of them have a predestined path by their parents already. But sometimes it's not necessarily what they love. So what's your take on that? On should I take my parents' advice when it's against what I love doing and what I feel comfortable doing? What should I do in such a case, man? Talk to me.
Yeah, depends what your parents do, really, isn't it? It depends what your parents do. I'll speak from experience, right? My parents were entrepreneurs, as it were. They had hotels. That's what we did back in England, okay? In fact, my uncle did the same thing and my grandma did the same thing. So they had hotels. That was their life. But then as I'm growing up through school, I was pretty good. I wasn't the best, wasn't the worst. I was above average. And my parents would tell me, hey, you need to go get a trade. You need to become a construction guy. My dad would often tell me, you need to get into welding. All these kind of tradey things. And I'm looking at him, I'm like, but Dad, look what you're doing. I mean, how does he even match up? And so what happens to a lot of people, not everyone, but a lot of people, is that parents will often put what they should have done as a kid or growing up, and they kind of put that on their children sometimes. Like, you should have become a lawyer because, best path, you'd be making the most money for the least amount of effort or whatever. And they have this idea without even having the experience. And so I talk about this as being, do they have the fruit on the tree kind of analogy? Does whoever's telling you, whether it's a parent, best friend, someone of authority in your life, do they have this experience in this area that they're suggesting someone to follow down? Because if we were to connect the dots of everything we've done today, you'll find that everything that we've done, at least the biggest part of what we've ever done, has been influenced by someone else. Whether that's hey, you should learn how to play the guitar. Hey, we should go watch this movie. Hey, you should go check this out and study this at school. Hey, we should go here tonight. We should go to this restaurant. You should try this career path. Have you ever thought about going into online stuff? I can stand here fully and I was influenced to do what I do today. It wasn't my own brilliant idea. Do you know what I mean? And so parents, because they're amazing people in their lives, we love them. Our friends, we love them. Family members, we love them. They'll tell us things out of their best interest because they love us without really fully understanding the consequence of taking those actions, the lifestyle that comes with that. So many lawyers and doctors and professionals who sit in the high tower buildings who have great paying jobs, but then you look at the quality of life and what does that look like for somebody? So I don't know if that answers the question fully, but when it comes to following your heart, I fully do believe in this now. It's something I'm really starting to discover, is listen to this thing more. It tends to guide you pretty good. It's a beautiful internal compass, but we tend to use our logic and rationalize as to why we should, why we shouldn't, pros and cons, all this kind of stuff. And it just leaves us like, I'm stuck. I don't know what to do. I'm so conflicted, right? It's like an internal battle. And
Yeah,
so,
that's very true.
yeah, absolutely. And so I've taken the steps now for myself and my wife to really follow what's going on in here because
Yeah.
we want to live our life. We want to go see the world. We want to help people where we can in the capacity that we're able to, right? Doing certain careers or jobs, not that they're bad or wrong or immoral. It's just sometimes they can be pretty limiting. And what I've
Yeah.
found and discovered is that there's a lot of people out there who are really good at doing things they don't like doing.
That's very true. But now, I personally believe as well that there are some people that get to do what they do not want to do just because they really haven't figured it out. They haven't really figured out what exactly that they want to do. So they easily become, they're easily influenced as to do something. And then later on, when they're on the path, they just start to discover that, hey, this is not something that I really want to do. And at the end of the day, they're really depressed. But at the same time, there are also those people that might really want to do something, but maybe their parents are against it. How would you advise somebody in such a situation to get to talk to their parents and voice it out that, hey, mom and dad, I don't think this is something that is best for me. I would rather do this. What's your take on that? How can somebody talk to their parents? What method can they use to make their parents understand?
Wow, this is huge, man. That's such a big question because I feel like a lot of people are maybe in this situation where, okay, I'm going to business school, but it's just, I don't know, it's just something not right about it. Like, it's not me. I'm not passionate about it. I'm not finding it fun and exciting. But when I look at painting and drawing stuff or creating music, man, that's my zone. Like, I love doing that, right?
Yeah.
And so, man, like, how do you have this conversation with your parents? You just gotta have it, I guess, and see what happens. Because at the end of the day, if you're under mom and dad's roof still, they promise, well, you gotta go to school, you gotta go do this under our roof. They could be like that. They could be really supportive and loving. You just don't know how they're gonna be unless you have the conversation and just kind of face it, right? It might be a bit scary, intimidating, but you gotta run towards that. And I think you had a similar experience at some point in your life as well, where it's like, this isn't who I am, right? This isn't who I am. This is what I want to do. But you had an amazing response from that, right? And I understand it's not everyone's. Yeah.
Exactly. I heard that experience, and trust me, it took a lot of guts because I thought, you know what, my parents are really going to explode on me. And it took quite a number of months for me to actually gain the guts to go and talk to them. But surprisingly, when I did, they were actually happy that I came to them and talked to them and said, hey, as long as you love this, you've got to go for it. So I really agree with you that yes, sometimes it's important for you to voice out rather than just sitting back. But how important is the question of asking yourself, what exactly do I want out of life? How important is that question?
It's a huge question again. And at an early age, as we're growing through that kind of education system, we get asked this question instead: what do you want to do when you grow up? What kind of job do you want to have when you're older? You know, what kind of career do you want to be or have, whatever? And it puts us in this certain framework of mind. It frames a question in a way that, okay, I have to choose something.
Yeah.
Right? I have to choose either to be this, or I have to choose to study languages, I have to choose to study sciences, math, whatever it is. So it puts you in this framework. So what do you want to be? Right? What do you want to do when you grow up? What is it? What's the career path? So if you were to reframe the question to, so how do you want to live when you grow up? It's completely different. How do you want to live, right? Well, I don't know. Maybe I want to fly around the world a few times. Maybe I want to go scuba diving. I want to go jungle trekking. I want to do safari. Do you know what I mean? I want to cross the Atlantic Ocean by boat or whatever it is. I want to have experience. So changing the framework of the question to the people younger in our society, and even right now where you are, instead of what do you want to do, how do you want to live? It just changes everything, it opens everything up. It really starts you thinking. I think that's how you're going to get to that question, or the answer to the question you said, how important is it to find out what you want? A lot of people don't know where to even start. And I know this because if you were to ask your neighbor right now, so how do you want to live? They have no idea. They've never been asked this question. Yeah, exactly. And so they haven't really taken the time to think about this. But if you're to really come from a loving place, asking them, well, seriously, think about it. Tell me, Would you like to do this? And then they start getting these juices, these creative juices going again, like experiences of the world. Wow, I'd love to do that. And so to answer the question in a nutshell, that was a long version. It's extremely important for people to find out what they really want to do, because that's what they want to do. It's not necessarily the office job. It's not necessarily having the perfect like family and all the picket fences. Maybe that isn't for someone. Maybe it is to be that free soul roaming the world. You just never know. But you don't know unless you start to reflect on it and ask these bigger questions to ourselves, right?
Yeah. But how does now somebody, because like you highlighted rightfully, you said that at times it's very hard to know where to start. So what are some of the steps, if you have in mind, what are some of the steps that you can advise somebody to start taking in order for them to really identify something that they can say, hey, this is what I want to do in life? How best can you advise somebody to help them to identify what they want out of life?
Yeah, a great question again, brother. You got them all. You got them all today. All the good questions. Okay, so when you're in a state of of not knowing, right? Like I don't know. I think first of all we have to acknowledge who we're hanging out with, who we're spending time with, right?
Yes.
Who's my best friend? Am I listening to my parents more than anyone? Am I listening to my friend Stan over here who isn't really doing anything? He's kind of just going through the motions of life. You know what I mean? Like, who am I listening to? Who am I hanging out with? Because in the realm of knowing stuff, okay, like you know who your name is, you know where you are. There's also another realm of not knowing, or you don't know. For example, I know I don't know how to fly a plane, right? I know that. Yeah. I know I don't know how to do that. And then there's another realm which we call our blind spots, and this makes up the biggest portion of stuff that we don't know, we don't even know about. So when you don't know where to start, it's because it's not in the realm of knowing and it's not in the realm of don't knowing, if that makes sense. So both knowing and don't knowing are in the realm of knowing, right? So the biggest blind spot is like, well, I don't know. I don't know where to start at all. It's never even come into your minds before. And so the way to access that is through community. It's through association. It's through proximity that you're going to be able to access this spot. And so being very conscientious of who you're hanging out with, very intentional. And it's finding people who look as though they got the fruit on the tree. You know, it's asking questions to people. I know you're amazing at this. You're always asking questions and picking people's brains and stuff like that. But it's going out there and finding people who seemingly look like they know what they're doing. Okay. Yeah. And upon further investigation, asking questions. And it might be that it's just a front. They look good, they smell good, they even sound good, but really, her life isn't so great. Their values don't align with mine. Okay, I'm going to move on until you find someone who aligns with what you're looking for. And even though you might not necessarily know what you're looking for, you're looking for quality people. You're looking for that good association, that good community. And then you're going to find people who are going to ask you these questions. So how do you want to live? It's exactly what happened to me. And it just changed everything from what I ever knew. That's kind of like the secret, as it were, or the tool, which is really going to kind of elevate your game. It's going to open your perspective and mindset more, right? It's power of proximity. It's power of association. In my opinion, it's one of the most powerfulest things on the planet. Because as you know, you do become who you hang out with. You do become the average of who you surround yourself with and the books you read. And so this one's huge, man. Very, very big question.
You have indicated that you were working in a restaurant or serving in a restaurant, if I'm not mistaken, for over half of your life. Were you finding peace in doing that? And why is it that you changed lately? Why did you shift to having to coach business online as compared to something that you've been doing for almost over half of your life? What made you have that drastic change? Because there's a big difference between the two.
Yeah, good question. So just to backtrack a few years, I was influenced to get a restaurant job to begin with. Okay, so I was 15 when I got my first job, and a couple of my friends were working at the same restaurant. So, hey, Jesse, you need to come on board because we're making £30 a day at 15 years old. And so I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. And so that started me on my journey, basically. I went from dishwashing to bartending at 17. Into 18 years old, I was bartending then, even still. Then I was running my first pub by the age of 20. I was running my friend's pub there back in England as well. Had the full place to myself. I even lived above the pub for a while. And then I transitioned to coming to Canada at the age of 22, and I found another restaurant job here, went back to England, ran a cafe. So I've done all these jobs doing this, right? And for the longest time, this has been all I've known. I went to school for music, which was fun. It was creative, but it didn't really do too much for me. Do I take it back? Absolutely not. I wouldn't be where I am today without it. And so the change was, and when things start to change, you have to make change. Change is always going to happen. It's inevitable. But it's when I got engaged to my beautiful wife, Ashley, right? That's when things started changing for the greater good. And I was running a restaurant at the time, which is one of the busiest restaurants where I currently am now in Calgary. And man, it was wild. It was a gong show, man. Like, it really was. If you're familiar with the restaurant industry out there, I'm speaking to you at home watching this, it really does wrap around partying and having late nights, doing things you probably regret doing the next day. Like, it can be pretty chaotic. It can be pretty messy. And so for me, the biggest change was once I got engaged, it's like, oh my gosh, wake up call. Like, I'm going to be married. Like, I gotta be a man, I might actually be a father one day, which is definitely the goal here. And so things start to shift, right? Your perspective shifts, priorities change. And so it was less about doing something I'm good at because it pays me good money, it's easy. It's like, well, I gotta change it up. And that's when I first started looking for stuff different than what is traditionally taught, right? It was looking for the online stuff. It was looking for things I could potentially build and create on the side to supplement my income so that I didn't have to send my wife to work. I really didn't want her to work. And I'm happy to say now she's not worked for 2 years, right? Which is awesome. She's a happy woman. Okay. But if it wasn't for the restaurant, this is like the big piece. If it wasn't for the restaurant, I would not have been where I am today, because someone who I was serving asked me the question, so do you ever keep your options open? And everything's going through my head. What am I doing out here? I'm not gone to school. I went to music. I'm kind of yeah, of course I keep my options open. Of course I do. And that put me on the path of these questions and answers, as it were. My mindset opening up, my perspective was broadening, because I was being asked these questions. How do you want to live? What kind of life do you want to create for yourself? Have you ever thought about doing anything else like this? And this put me on this path of personal development, of growth, of reading, of listening to positive stuff every day. Mentorship was now a part of my life, because all my friends was back in England. I was in Canada. I found a new father figure out here, right? And he was helping guide me through all this tumultuous times of the restaurant party life and banging heads with my wife at the time as well, because it was a rocky start. There was just so much to it. I was like, man, this has got to change. I already knew it had to change, but now I've found somebody who is, in my opinion, so much higher up here in terms of what he's accomplished, his mindset, how he thinks. I get to rub shoulders with this guy now and really start picking his brain. And that was, like I said, a handful of years ago. And just through that time now, that was what caused the biggest shift, was being married, perspective and priorities have changed. And I was actually looking to do something different as well. So that was another big piece. I knew I was looking, I just didn't know what I wanted to do, didn't know how to do it, didn't know how to execute. And I think, again, a lot of people out there like, I know I want to do something, but what do I do? Where do I start? How do I do it? Right? And so for me, if that answers your question, that was the biggest shift, was when the biggest shift in my life happened, really. And I was looking. So that was a big piece of it too.
Wow, thank you very much. In conclusion, what would be the last piece of advice that you would give to your listeners?
Oh man, okay, yeah, wonderful. Again, I think coming back to the power of proximity, power of association is where it all starts. So if you have an inkling or an idea, I'm just not happy, I'm not sure this is for me, it's not my cup of tea. Okay, let's start thinking out the box a little bit. Let's start looking at who's around you. What are their mindsets like? Are they encouraging? Are they limiting? Because sometimes we're around our friends and it's not a friendship circle, it's a jail. It's a prison cell, because they're literally keeping you down, they're holding you back, right? And so if you have anything up here which is telling you otherwise, like I need to do something, like I need to change something, I'm not happy with my lifestyle, I'm drinking and partying too much, then you gotta look around your immediate circle. This is the biggest piece, right? I really do believe that. I think it's like I said in this video, in this interview with you, Anasu, is that it's one of the most powerful forces on the planet. So it all starts there. Yeah. We're not so good to do it all on our own. Otherwise, we would have figured it out by now. Okay. The same brain that got you into where the situation you are now is not enough to get you out of it. You need someone else around you who's going to uplift you, encourage you, support you, and love you, challenge you in equal measure. And so your association, the closest ones around you, let's start there. And now we can start working outwards from that point.
Wow, wonderful. Thank you very much for being with us today. We really, really, really benefited so much from you. Thank you very much for sharing some wisdom with us.
Thank you, Anasu. It's been an absolute pleasure joining